Can't believe it's well, actually, I can't believe it's 5:33 on a Saturday morning and I'm talking about gate operators. Um, because I love to. Uh, there was a question on one of the forums, and I'll try to post this on the forum as well as my page. But there was a question about solar installations. And with solar installations, it's relatively simple. You don't get necessarily any less reliability on a properly maintained solar installation than you would electrical. I always try to go electrical because there's other things that you're going to need out at the gate operator that would be a lot more convenient if you had electricity. But sometimes solar is the only option due to cost, due to mainly cost, really, because I was going to say physical limitations with the electricity, but that's the same thing. There's going to be electricity somewhere, whether it's a mile away or whether it's 10 feet away. It's the cost of trenching and those types of things. So, solar is really just one of those things that just from an application standpoint that you have to factor in if you're going to start installing and servicing gate operators. The biggest thing that I see with solar installations is people don't take a look at the environment and install the solar panels, Jesus, all the solar panels properly. And for the most part, this is generically for the most part, I'm sure some people will comment on this, but you want the solar panel facing south and you want it at a certain angle. So the acronym that I use for the installation part of it is SOAPY, size, orientation, angle, position, or why you're screwed, right? So SOAPY, SOAPY. If you don't focus on those four things, you're fucked. So you have to focus on those four things. Size in essence, although there are panels that are more efficient than other panels. For the most part, the bigger you go, the more current you have available. And there's like one key word there, which is current. All right. So the bigger you go, the more current that you have available. And the reason why I don't point out voltage is because the voltage is relative to the system that you're trying to charge. So if it's a 36 volt system, you're going to need a 50 volt, in essence, panel, or depending upon, again, how much current you have. Typically, these panels sometimes will even be double what the voltage on the system is, so they'll have more current capability. But the more you go in the price of panels, when everything's compared, typically you'll have the efficacy of a more expensive panel be better than a less expensive panel. So size, going back to size is the bigger you go, the more current capability you have. Orientation. So orientation relative to the arc of the sun. You may have, and only recently have I changed may have, more efficiency if you turn the panel horizontally as opposed to vertically. You can, in theory, track the sun better. This is something that you'll have to test out. And what I have changed my opinion on, based on vertical or horizontal installation of the panel, is how they actually put the cells in series and parallel, whether it's going to be efficient or not. So basically what you want to do is find peak sunlight, directly the sunlight overhead, and on a non-cloudy day, and find out what your short circuit current is. And sometimes vertical or as opposed to horizontal orientation will be better. I think US Automatic was selling a solar panel at one point in time that was square. Even on a square panel, you may want to take a look at how you have it positioned, whether it's this way or this way. You might have more efficacy on current output depending upon how you install it. So orientation, and then angle. I've always been a proponent of 45 degrees. However, there's a lot of evidence saying that the angle of the panel does not need to be at 45 degrees. It needs to be at 15 or 20 or 25 degrees, depending upon. Okay, if that's what you want to go with, then that's what you want to go with. I guess it's all depending upon what part you are in the world and the position of the sun. But you basically want to have the sun facing as much as you can directly at the panel. So if the sun is like this, and your panel is like this, you're not going to have as much efficiency as it would be like this. So that will have to be one of those things that you could test out. And it's a very, very easy to do. And we'll talk about this here in a second about how you test the panel. And manufacturers, distributors, and other instructors are telling you how to test the panel wrong. And this is why I have so much information on this, because I got pissed off that these manufacturers, you're calling them up and the tech support is going, oh, you need to test to see what your voltage is, which is the worst thing that you could say as an expert to say to test voltage. It's just so stupid for anybody to say that. You can have voltage with no current. Voltage is just potential. So if the panel is the correct voltage for the system, you don't worry about voltage. I'm not saying don't check it. I'm just saying if that's what an expert is telling you to test it first, they're an idiot. And you need to hang up and find another distributor, another manufacturer, or somebody who knows what they're talking about and buy products from them, and not from the person that's telling you to test voltage. So that's angle. And like I said, there's plenty of people who would, and plenty of experts who are a lot smarter than me, which doesn't take much. I'm sure that there's 5-year-olds or dogs or German shepherds that are smarter than me. You have evidence out there, again, saying that I'm wrong, but I've always been of the opinion in the markets that I've worked in, which were good markets to have solar panels in, 45 degrees. But you can go look at solar fields, none of them are at 45 degrees. So in essence, by proof of what's being done out there, I'm wrong. So you'll just have to test it. Different areas are going to have different things. And then position. So this is where I talk about my $100 bill test. You have to understand how solar panels that are built, and they have these little bitty squares in there that are the actual panels that are wired together. And because they're wired where one depends on the other, if you cover that solar panel from trampoline poles, from leaves, from shadows of a building, from the hinge post, from a brick column, if you cover that with anything bigger, really, than a business card, but I call a $100 bill test because it gets people's attention. If you cover it with anything bigger than a $100 bill, you have a dead fucking solar panel. And if anybody worth their salt doesn't agree with that, then again, you need to pick your book up and you need to pick your pen and paper up and go find another class to learn from, because that person who's telling you that doesn't have to pay for your warranty calls. That person who's telling you that doesn't have to buy a new battery for your customer, which is one of those reasons why I have focused my studies on just gate operators in general, but solar panels, is because I have a distributor telling me to do this, and they don't have to pay for the panel. And that came to a head, about 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago when I was just going out there replacing batteries. Well, what's your voltage on the panel? Oh, it's 18 volts. Well, you've got enough power. No, you don't. So the P position, depending upon where you install it, you could basically have just a little bitty obstruction over that panel and render the panel dead. So position is important as well too. I see a lot of panels on brick columns where just a little bit on the bottom of the panel is covered up by the brick because of how they installed it, because the cap, I think they call it capstone, is covering the top part of the column, so it's very hard to get the panel over that. Well, again, you have a dead panel. And with all of that, there's a little caveat. It's not saying that it won't work, and it's not saying that it won't work 6 months or 12 months. I'm just saying it's going to be less efficient, and in my experience, you're just going to be costing yourself money. So SOPI, size, orientation, angle, position, or you're screwed. If you're not paying attention to those four, you're fucked. So just be careful when you have manufacturers telling you you just need sunlight, just a little bit of sunlight, and you don't have to worry. Doesn't matter whether it's at vertical or horizontal or whatever. They just don't know what they're talking about. And most important, they don't have to pay for their mistakes, right? You have to pay for their mistakes. And we know that. That's just an inherent in our business. It's not like the car manufacturers where if you take it into the service department at the Ford dealership, they're still getting paid their $18, $19 bottom rate if they're doing something under warranty. No, if we're doing it under warranty, we are paying for it out of our pocket. Size, orientation, angle, position, or you're screwed. Now, that's just the solar panel installation. Now we talk about the solar panel testing. And there's only one test that you need to perform. And if you were to do this, again, knowing that the solar panel is the correct voltage for the system, if you were just to give me this one test, I could definitively tell you whether that system is capable of charging the batteries and will work for that. Again, it doesn't have to, I'm not talking about the mechanics, battery capability, or anything like that. I'm just saying, will it have enough current to recharge the battery? So short circuit current is, in essence, the only thing that matters. I'm not saying don't test voltage. I'm just telling you that is the only thing I need to hear from you, and that's the one thing that you want to call me with. Sorry, it looks like I just woke up because I did just about an hour ago. So, oh goodness gracious, man. I don't know what was going on in my sleep, but I must have been eating some, what's that? Oh, I was eating pizza rolls before I went to bed. So I got breadcrumbs all over me. So anyways, and bed crumbs too. That's the great thing about being single. You get to eat in bed. Size, orientation, angle, position, or you're screwed. Short circuit current is how you need to test it. If you are going to use sealed lead acid batteries, this is very important. Sealed lead acid batteries need 8 hours or a full day of charge. You have to keep in mind in the beginning of the morning and at the end of the night, if your panel is installed correctly, and again, we're talking about one panel. If your panel is installed correctly, you're not going to have any efficacy in the morning or at night. So you need to have 8 hours on a sealed lead acid battery. On a lithium ion battery, you have a little bit more flexibility, but you need to make sure that you have a charge controller for that. And wet batteries and stuff like that. There's some other battery technologies that you will get more reliability out of. I've had my dentist, I put a gate in Dallas, and he only just recently, about 6 months ago, and I stopped servicing his gate. He sold this house 4 or 5 years ago, and about 6 months ago, he said, "Hey, the new homeowner." Granted, they had already the house for like 5 years, needs, the gate operator is not working. So it was being powered off of AC, not solar, but it had a very expensive battery in there that I happened to get for cheap. So I bought a dozen of these and was using them for my batteries and gate operators, and they work great forever, but they were very expensive batteries. We're talking about maybe 4 times the cost of what a sealed lead acid battery would be with the same amp hours. So there is battery technology out there that you can get a lot more life out of, but you need to make sure that you have a charge controller for that. While I'm thinking about it, there are some solar panels that are being built with charge controllers in them. And you will go to test your short circuit current or test your voltage, and guess what? You will get 0, and you'll go, "Oh crap, I got a bad solar panel." Well, if it has a charge controller built in, it won't turn on until it recognizes that there's a battery there. So testing it with your multimeter won't do any good. And I think on those, from Mike's one-time limited experience, you won't be able to test short circuit current either. So without, the manufacturer may have some way to do it to turn off the charge controller in the panel. But as panels get cheaper and smarter, some of these tests aren't going to apply. So you've got your battery technology, you've got your charging capability through the short circuit current, you have your installation techniques, and then you have the amount of sunlight that you need, and that will fluctuate not only conditions environment wise, but also your longitude and latitude is affected by that as well too. Most manufacturers should be able to give you some recommendations based on your geographics. So I think that's pretty much the basics of what I see as generally wrong out there. Not getting the right panels, not getting the right amount of output, not knowing how to test them, not knowing how to install them, and then your battery technology. So there are some other things that come into play. Obviously, the resistance on the gate, and then the number of cycles and environmental factors come into play as well too. Just know that it is not maintenance free. A maintenance free battery is not maintenance free. A sealed battery is not sealed. A solar panel system where the battery will work 3 years does not mean that the solar panel doesn't need to be maintenance regularly. All it takes is a thin layer of dust that builds up over 6 months in order to make that panel to where it's not efficient enough to charge the battery. I know that seems weird, even in full sunlight. If it had full sunlight all day, every day, but still had a thin layer of dust on it, it could quite possibly not charge the battery at all or enough in order for it to get its 3 to 5 years, depending upon the type of battery that you have, life out of it. So just keep in mind, solar panels aren't maintenance free, especially where you have snow, but in dirty areas and stuff like that, they're not maintenance free. You need to clean those regularly. Now, is that something a customer could do? Yeah, they need to go out there every month and clean it in order to get the most efficiency out of their battery. Woo! Somebody needs, next time before they do a YouTube video, they need to take a shower. But anyways, I'm so excited about this because I love talking about solar panels, and we're going into the weekend where I'm not going to have time to do all these text messages and all that stuff. So I wanted to talk about solar panels for gate operators. So unedited, unfiltered, that's it. So any other questions, let me know.